Everyone to tonight's council's meeting. I'm the Mayor, Councillor Ranka Rustic. I declare this meeting open at 7:01 p.m. I would like to welcome the members of the public who have joined us in the chambers tonight. Members of the public attending council and committee meetings are expected to behave respectfully at all times and not permitted to engage with the councillors or council officers during the course of the meeting. This includes directing and loud and inappropriate comments towards councillors and officers or making noise that impacts council's ability to conduct its meeting. Also, persons present tonight have right to be safe and treated with respect. Council will not tolerate any behaviour that threatens the safety of anyone present in the chamber, or which disrupts the ability for council to conduct its business on behalf of the community. You will be asked to leave the meeting if your behaviour is inappropriate, disruptive or rude. Due to ongoing disruption experienced at the council meetings, all members of the gallery are required to pre-register their attendance at council's meeting to support continuous effort to maintain a safe and secure environment for all participants, whilst allowing council to conduct an ordinary meeting. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow the directions of the council officers and the emergency procedures on the wall near the door. I would like to note that I have given approval for Channel 31 to live stream this meeting. A recording of the meeting will be published on council's website. We'll go to item 1, which is opening. Please stand for acknowledgement of country. On behalf of Brimbank City Council, I respectfully acknowledge and recognise the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people as traditional custodians of this land. Pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I ask councillors to remain standing. Others may be seated. At the council, we will act in the best interest of the Brimbank community and consider the immediate and long-term impact for our decisions. We will make these decisions fairly and without bias. We will uphold all of our obligations under the laws of Victoria and council's local laws, and we will act in accordance with our code of conduct. Please be seated. Going to go to item 3, apologies. We have Councillor Borg, Councillor Branton and Councillor O'Reilly. They have submitted an apology for this meeting, and Councillor Lancashire is on leave of absence. Item 4, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Are there any disclosures of conflict of interest for tonight, councillors? Okay. Thank you. Item 5, designation of items as confidential. May I have a mover of a motion to designate item as confidential? Yes, Jasmine. Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the item as confidential on the shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Dan?
I second it.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. We're going to go to item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. May I have a mover of motion to confirm the minutes of previous meeting? Councillor Papalia.
Move the motion.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Kerr.
I second the motion as per the shared screen.
All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I'm going to go to item 7, condolences. There are 2 items for condolences this evening. 7.1, Councillor Sarah Carter. Do I have a mover? Yes, Councillor Tarkus.
Madam Mayor, I move the motion of condolence as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkus, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to express my sincerest condolences to Sarah Carter's family and friends and her community. Like many, I'm still coming to terms with the loss of Sarah Carter and the tragedy of her loss to civic life. I too wish to express that how in such a short time of her 45 years, the breadth of her achievement and her wonderful engagement with her community will remain forever her legacy. I met Sarah in my first term on council, and we talked many times about issues impacting the West and our vision of how to improve the West and make it a tourist destination. Sarah always had strong core values guiding her and boundless passion, which made her such a great and caring leader. I wanted to talk how, on a personal level, aside from the local government and civic sphere, which Sarah excelled herself in as a councillor, she was also a keen traveller and had travelled over 40 countries. She absolutely loved travelling and flying. She told me she would love to be in the sky and on a plane because you were always on the way somewhere and you could also relax. Sarah had an adventurous spirit, and Sarah inspired others, including myself. I remember discussing with Sarah my dream of one day doing the Camino de Santiago, but first I had to get really fit because it was a tough pilgrimage, 780 k's in total. Needless to say, Sarah was already, in August 2019, preparing to embark on this pilgrimage, and I and many others followed her journey daily for a month with avid admiration. The ups and downs she experienced and the magnificence of achieving something she had forever dreamed of by preparing and committing to do it and achieving it. I quote her in her messages on the pilgrimage that left an indelible impact on me. Do not be afraid to walk alone, and don't be afraid to like it. Last year, I endeavoured on my own pilgrimage, a lifelong dream, in some of the most, at times, highly dangerous territories. And though at times I did question the what ifs, it was the power of realising that I was finally there, and was at times almost surreal, but the experience was worth everything. This is the legacy I will remember you for, Sarah, because you inspired me and many others to put excuses aside. Time is not limitless, and to go out there and achieve your dreams. Sarah, you were a wonderful councillor colleague over the years. You were a passionate Westie who fought hard for the arts and so many businesses to thrive in Maribyrnong and really rise up and become a centre stage. You were truly loved by many. Your legacy looms large, Sarah, and your absence so suddenly and tragically affects us so deeply. Vale, Sarah, forever fly high.
Thank you. Councillor,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Sarah, very well known to me, and I used to call her uncrowned princess somehow. And the reason behind that, it was back in 2018, when Marsha Thompson at the time decided to retire, and we had what they call the pre-selection to select a replacement. And there was three candidates at the time, and that was, of course, Katie Hall, Sarah Carter, and Michael Clark. Katie just got over the line, but I knew that perhaps Sarah one day would be up there because she had that quality. She was a tremendous worker, loved by just everyone. At the funeral, I never saw so many people there. Veterans, state parliamentarians, local people that I know around us, nearby neighborhood councils, and of course, a lot of other people for just far away, which I haven't seen for a long time. They are there to pay their respect. Of course, Sarah lived a life of values and of service, and she threw herself into just about everything. She was involved with total commitment. She had an impact on so many people's lives, and her work would save the children. It was something to write a book about it, yes. That was taken away, I think, very early in life, 45 years of age, far too soon, yeah. Madam Mayor, I think the only thing I can say is the condolences to the family, and may the God perhaps help Sarah to rest in peace. And I wonder if we can send a letter signed by you, Madam Mayor, to the family. Our condolences from here. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor David. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Yeah, Councillor
Thank you,
David.
Madam Mayor. I would like to express my deep sympathies to the family of Councillor Sarah Carter. Sarah was a force of nature, full of life, and truly inspiring woman with a heart of gold, especially for children. Her dedication to the community and her kind heart left a lasting impact on everyone who knew her. Rest in peace, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Councillor Newell?
I would like to start off by saying my deepest condolences to Councillor Sarah Carter and her family. For those who've had the honour and privilege of getting to know her, she is one of the strongest women that I know, and she contributed so much to Melbourne's West. And if you know anything about her, she's really, really dedicated. Like, her work ethic was, she would fly in to council and then, you know, a lot of work with Save the Children, and she held really, really strong values, like, you know, empowering women, looking out for vulnerable people, and I will always remember her resilience and her leadership. Yeah, rest in peace, Sarah Carter.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Not, I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to item 7.2, Mr. Charlie Desira or AM. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tarkus.
I move the condolence motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Dang.
I seconded Madam Mayor.
Councillor Tarkus, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say that I'm reading this on behalf of Councillor Victoria Borg, who unfortunately could not attend today's meeting. Charlie, who was originally from Malta, volunteered for over 24 years while living in Brimbank. In the year 2000, he started collecting food and distributing it to refugees and the poor living in the area with the help of a very small group of volunteers from the Holy Eucharist Parish in St Albans. As time went on, he could see that there was a much greater need for this service. In spite of the enormous challenges that he encountered, he managed to establish the Fish and Loaves Food Bank. Over the years, it has grown to the extent that it serves around 700 families within Brimbank and beyond. He also started the St Albans South Senior Citizens Club, which is also highly successful, having over 300 members who meet regularly every week. In 2023, Charlie was awarded the Medal of Order of Australia, OAM, in recognition of his long commitment in serving the community on a voluntary basis. I have known Charlie for the last 8 years in my capacity as a councillor. I had the opportunity to meet him a number of times, both at the food bank and at the club. He was a person who always strived to meet the needs of the community in more ways than one. He had the community very much at heart. As his son Rodney mentioned in his eulogy, patience, love, and words of wisdom always shine through him. Charlie's legacy will continue to live on, and he's greatly missed by his family and the community. I would like to pass on my condolences to his wife, Michelle, his children, Natalie, Rodney, and Sarah, and grandchildren. Vale, Charlie.
Thank you. Councillor Dang, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Charlie dedicated his life to serving others. For the past 23 years, Charlie's unwavering commitment and tireless efforts have touched countless lives and make a significant impact to our community. Let us celebrate his life by carrying forward his spirit and of service and dedication. Charlie will be deeply missed, but his legacy will live on in the heart of the people who he helped.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion, councillors? If not, I'll put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I'm going to go to item 8, congratulations. There are no items of congratulations this evening. So item 9 is a public question time. So Mr. Wu, I understand we have received questions from members of the public.
Madam Mayor, yes, we received several questions from members of the public for tonight's meeting. I note that some people asked more than 2 questions, so only 2 questions will be responded to in accordance with the governance rules. So In the end, the panel asks 2 questions and a single answer will be provided. The questions are, could you please provide information on any upcoming projects or plan the council has to install EV chargers? Additionally, can you provide a list of current public sites within our community that already have EV charging stations available?
Council has installed 2 dual-port 22-kilowatt public EV charging station at Brimbank Aquatic and Wellness Centre, which are publicly accessible. Well, no other council projects for public chargers are underway. There are other public accessible EV chargers around Brimbank, and council encourages private providers to install more.
So Shannon Melek asked, the Festa Santa Maria Assunta is an honest annual tradition for the large Maltese population in Brimbank and is of significant cultural importance. Can Council advise what support, if any, was provided to champion this festival this year?
The Festa Santa Maria Assunta in Brimbank is a community-led festival run by Santa Maria Assunta Association. The association received a community festivals and events grant of $8,000 through Council's 2023-2024 Community Grants Program. Council also assisted in promoting community festivals through our media channels.
So the second question from Shannon Milak. Can Council advise why dietary requirements cannot be catered for or why vegan options are not available through their Meals on Wheels program?
Council's current meals provider has various vegetarian options available. However, it does not provide vegan menu options. As a result, this is not something Council is able to offer clients of our delivered meal service. In the event client dietary preference or requirements cannot be sufficiently accommodated by Brimbank's delivery meal service, clients are matched to service that better meets their needs.
The next question from Lorraine Milak. Why does Council recognize the need for HEPA filters for elderly people and carers looking after disabled people, but not disabled people themselves?
The Department of Health lists air filters units, including HEPA filters, as one of several COVID-19 prevention measures. However, they are not legislated or required by building code regulations. Council chooses to install portable air filters unit in selected locations to meet their responsibilities under the aged care quality standards. A unit is also used to bring back carer space identified through community co-design to enhance carers' comfort and well-being.
The second question from Lauren Milak. Are there any council-initiated and run support or social groups for disabled people?
Council provides inclusive programs for people of all abilities, including those with disabilities, across its libraries, neighbourhood houses, community centres and leisure facilities. The Brimbank Disability Network Group connects those with lived experience to local service providers. More details are available on the Brimbank City Council website.
The next question from Matthew Way. Which parts of the Brimbank cycling and walking strategy have yet to be implemented or built?
Since 2016, when the cycling and walking strategy was adopted, 13 projects have been completed and a further 7 are in design and reasonably well advanced. These projects do take time as they are typically complex and involve working with multiple stakeholders, including government and other agencies, to gain the necessary approvals and design input. The remaining 12 initiatives in the strategy will be considered as a part of a strategic review to determine which remain relevant and deliverable, and what other projects need to be considered.
The next question also from Matthew Way. What is Brimbank City Council doing to increase the number of trips taken via active transport?
Council encourages active transport through the implementation of the cycling and wellbeing strategy. Council is also undertaking further strategic work and in April this year conducted a household survey about transport performance, including active transport.
The next question from Despina Havelas. When is Brimbank City Council planning to open the carers space at Killer Downs to local carers to access and use?
Council is working towards an official launch of the Brimbank Carer Space in early September 2024.
So the last question also from Despina Havelas. As the carer space is a pilot program, when did the pilot start? And is it a 12-month program? And when is the pilot finishing?
The Brimbank Carer Space will be piloted for up to 2 years from the time of opening, with ongoing evolution throughout the pilot period.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's no further public question for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Tony. Going to move to item 10, petitions. There are no petitions to be received this evening. Item 11, minutes reports of delegated committees. There is one set of minutes of delegated committee, 11.1, Lead West Joint Delegated Committee. Motion is displayed on the screen. Do I have a mover? Councillor Papalia.
I move the motion as per shared screen.
Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor David. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. I'm going to go to item 12, officers' report. There are 13 officer reports for consideration by council tonight. If you have an altered or amended motion this evening, you must draft these motions and provide to governance team by email so that they may be shared on the screen and form part of the meeting. Otherwise, we may have to defer the matter until the motion has been written, allowing the meeting to proceed uninterrupted. Sorry. 12.1, planning activity update and delegated decisions and planning scheme amendment update July 2024. Mr. Walsh? Can we have phones off? Thank you. On silent. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council information on the status of planning permit applications and trends in planning approvals in Brimbank, decisions made under delegated authority during July of this year, and the status of current planning scheme amendments as at the 31st of July of this year. Officers recommend that Council notes the planning activity update and delegated decisions, and the delegated decisions as shown at attachment 1, as well as the Council has recommended to note the planning scheme amendment summary at attachment 3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this item? Councillor Nguyen.
I would like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to it?
No need.
Councillor
thank
Papalia. Anyone else? Councillors, would anyone like to speak to this motion? If not, I'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. 12.2, planning application P475/2023 for 8 Robson Avenue, Sunshine. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As councillors would recall, this report was deferred from the July council meeting and is presented tonight unchanged. The purpose of the report is for council to consider a planning permit application for alterations to an existing dwelling and construction of 2 double-storey dwellings to the rear of 8 Rawson Avenue in Sunshine, and this assessment is made against the provisions of the Brimbank planning scheme. And the officer's recommendation remains unchanged from last month and recommend that council issue a notice of decision to grant the planning permit for the development at 8 Rawson Avenue, subject to a range of conditions that are detailed in attachment 5 to the report.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Any questions of clarification or? If not, do I have a move of this motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an alternate motion, which I'd like to share on the screen, if possible. The draft alternate motion for refusal of the above planning application for the council, to decide tonight on the following basis.
Can everyone see the screen clearly? Thank you. Do I have a second of this motion? Councillor Kerr?
I second the motion as per the shared screen.
Councillor Tarkus, would you like to speak to your amendment?
I would like to propose a foreshadow a motion if this motion lapses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I attended the planning forum in which we heard several concerns raised by the residents in regards to this planning application. The site has a dual frontage where additional dwellings could be accessed from Rawson Avenue rather than Lawrence Street. In fact, the site has never previously used the access from Lawrence Street. Lawrence Street is a narrow and dead-end street and does not lend itself to having lots of car movements. The proposal will increase the current traffic and parking issues in Lawrence Street, making this an unacceptable outcome for the existing residents. Council's waste trucks already have a lot of problems in servicing Lawrence Street, given that they struggle to turn around at the end. So what they do currently is they actually have to reverse out along the length of the street. So additional dwellings will only exacerbate this issue and create a possibly unsafe and unacceptable situation because there will be more bins to collect and there's insufficient room for them in this particular scheme of street. Some residents of Lawrence Street have tried to engage an independent traffic engineer to get an independent traffic management report. However, the cost to do something like this runs into the thousands and it's prohibitive and makes it very unfair on our residents to justify how this development would impact on their lives. But for the people that attended the planning forum, you would have heard this quite clear. The message is that this will have a huge and very detrimental impact to their livability in the street.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would anyone else like to speak to this motion or against perhaps? Or Councillor Nguyen?
I would actually like to speak for the motion that Councillor Tarkus has raised. And I too also attended the planning forum where we got to hear from the applicant and the objectors. And I would like to express, while I do appreciate the effort to create additional housing, I believe the proposal that was provided, it would further create adverse significant impacts on the local community, particularly on Lawrence Street. And it's noted that Lawrence Street, it's quite a narrow cul-de-sac, and the objectors said that they're already facing issues and challenges with traffic and the parking. And furthermore, in the report that is provided, that like officers do note that the waste team, they're currently having existing difficulties with waste collection in the area, and there is information said that the development may compound those programs, which is why there are conditions imposed if their proposal was to go ahead. So yes, I would just like to raise the concerns raised by the residents that they're currently already having issues on waste collection days, and going further with the proposal, noting there are conditions, it would probably make things a bit harder. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Yep, Councillor Papalia.
May I please ask a question of the director?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Walsh, I was just wondering if I understand the residents, we've heard from them in the planning forum, have raised concerns about the waste collection in that street and also parking and access. But I understand it's also an existing problem that currently is a problem with or without the development, the additional dwelling. Do you mind commenting or providing clarification around new impacts and what was assessed in that regard?
Thank you, Councillor Papalia. Through you, Madam Mayor. The detailed assessment which is attached to the report does go into the matters that were raised by residents. And whilst they have, the assessing officer has responded to um, uh, the, uh, the matters raised by the objectors with the support of internal referrals to our engineering area. And on balance have assessed that it is an acceptable, the increase in activity in Lorenz Street is an acceptable of an acceptable quantum to be managed by the infrastructure that is there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, look, if you remember, I said last time I went there and have a look at the property and the street. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. The only thing I thought was because of the maybe traffic in the near future. But apart from that, I thought the office report was quite sufficient. Yeah. So.
Thank you. I'll put this alternate motion of Councillor Tarkos to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. So it lapses. So, Councillor Papalia.
Yes, I'd like to propose the officer recommendation as per shared screen and move the motion as per shared screen. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Dan.
I second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Papalia, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes. Firstly, I think that will increase the amount of housing that is available in Brimbank, and it is a mixed dwelling types in the Sunshine Metropolitan area, and that where there's good access to services, facilities, and transport, as per the report. I understand the concerns that have been raised. It is unfortunate. I think those concerns are existing concerns, and my view is the same as the offer recommendation, that it's not going to make significant impact, and therefore, in line with our strategy, I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dan.
No, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this motion or against? No? If not, I'll put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. 12.3, application P392-2023 for approval of a development plan under development plan overlay 16 for 179 Tilburn Road, Deer Park and surrounding land. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider an assessment of the application for the approval of a development plan under the Development Plan Schedule Overlay 16 at 179 Tilburn Road, which was previously known as 765 Ballarat Road in Deer Park, and the surrounding land. Officers recommend that Council approves the development plan subject to the incorporation of a number of changes that are specified and detailed in attachment 7 to the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Tarkos.
I move the report as per shared screen.
Seconded,
Seconder.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to say that this particular development plan is the old Orica Deer Park site. It's approximately 65 hectares, which includes an existing heritage building, largely flat, shallow rock layer with residual contamination from the historical usage. There is an ongoing site monitoring going on with bores as a requirement by the EPA until the date of decommissioning from that site. It's a very strategically located site with proximity to transport networks, Ballarat Road, and offers good connectivity with good buffers of arterial roads from residential zones. There are notable constraints in the development of this site that are covered in this initial development plan that must be treated as a guide to future land uses that are consistent and respectful to heritage, past contamination issues, environmental values, abutting Cororoit Creek, and of course Hexion major hazards facility that's still operating next to this site. I believe the vision of an employment estate featuring warehousing distribution married with high quality design and shared pathways are very conducive to the development of this parcel of land. Whilst there is still detail in the 3 precincts being developed, greater detail is needed on the future of the existing trees on the site, Cororoid bank buffer retention, and also regarding the offsets for any trees that will be removed and the vegetation removed in the area. I think it's vital we preserve the unique biodiversity, including the grasslands, wetlands and woodlands that are abutting along Cororoit Creek to the north. Also, that strong buffer zones are considered next to the Hexion site, which is considered a major hazard facility, and strong risk mitigation measures are implemented when this development plan is further developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, look, I think Councillor Takos just put it all in a shell type of thing. Everything is happening in a good way up in that part of the world lately, and I'm happy for that. This site, for a logistics point of view, it'd be a 5-star thing to happen. And we got access to just about every street, Ballarat Road, as Councillor Takos says, the freeways next door. And maybe in the near future, they might ask for an opening through the freeway. What a wonderful thing will be. So congratulations to them. Yeah, it's a fantastic site, and I support the recommendation, yes.
Thank you, Councillor David. Would anyone else like to speak to this report, councillors? If not, I put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. 12.4 Annual Report on Implementation of Economic Development Strategy and Plans. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to be presented with information on the progress to implement the Economic Development Strategy, the Experience Brimbank Visitor and Local Participation Strategy, and the Local Jobs for Local People program. Officers recommend that Council notes the implementation status reports that are attached to this report at 1, 2 and 3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Kerr.
I move this as per the shared screen. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nguyen.
I'd like to second the motion, thank you.
Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this report?
Briefly, I just want to say Brimbank's doing an amazing job trying to support a lot of economic growth and development in our area, and just really great highlights in the report, including providing support to business migrants to start, people on visas to, build their business as well. And there's been a lot of investment in engaging with the multicultural community in regards to helping them flourish. And we also developed our visitor and local participant strategy, which is like the next phase. But I want to note that there's a lot of actions going on there too. Like a lot of work gone into this report. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would anyone like to speak to Councillor Takos?
I just want to commend this report as well, and I just want to commend also the Brimbank Job Link. That's been absolutely firing on all guns, and the amount of jobs that are coming through that portal, which is covers all of Brimbank. I've had tremendous and positive feedback from a lot of people that are looking for jobs close by to their to where they live. So I just want to commend Kelvin and his team for putting a lot of effort behind that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. So we're going to go to 12.5 Annual Report on Implementation of Place Management Action Plans. Mr. Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Council with information on the progress to implement the Sunshine Rising Action Plan and the Go St Albans Action Plan, which are two central plans that underpin our place management work. Officers recommend that Council notes the implementation status reports for Sunshine Rising Action Plan and the Go St Albans Action Plan that are attached to the Council report at attachments 1 and 2 respectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? If not, do I have a move of this report? Councillor Nguyen.
I would like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia.
I second the motion as per shared screen.
Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this report?
Once again, I would just really like to commend the extensive amount of work that Brimbank has done to activate our local area. We'd like to call out, particularly in Sunshine, the adoption of the energy park vision, which is a big amount of work to try get that green space activated in phases. Furthermore, there's also the exciting prospect of the Vietnamese Museum of Australia coming to Sunshine, and then the Albion renewal projects that we're trying to advocate for with the state government. And then in St Albans, we've also adopted the Alfreda Street Master Plan. So going for the completion of the design, that's going to be so exciting, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the future works as well. That's just a bit of the great highlights that Council has done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Papalia.
Nothing additional, only to say that the food tours in St Albans are happening, and that was a real hit, an exciting thing for St Albans, given there's such a diverse range of food out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.6, Annual Report on Implementation of Strategic Planning Strategy. Mr Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to be presented with information on the progress of our implementation of the Brimbank Heritage Strategy and the Brimbank Industrial Land Use Strategy. And officers recommend that Council notes the two status reports that are attached at attachment 1 and 2 to this Council report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Papalia.
I move the report as per shared screen. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor David. Second the report.
I'll second the report.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Papalia, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you.
Councillor David.
No, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, would anyone else like to? Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.7, Victorian Government Draft Housing Targets, Brimbank submission. Mr Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Council with the submission that is proposed to be made to the Victorian Government's draft housing targets that were recently released by the state government, and officers recommend that Council notes that the Victorian Government has released the targets and endorses for submission the draft Brimbank submission, which is at attachment 1, and also the Council notes that the Victorian Government intends to release the new plan for Victoria late this year, and that we anticipate that it will include the housing targets within it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Councillor Tarkos.
I move the report as per business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia.
I second the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this report?
I think this is a very important report because housing and the lack of supply of housing and affordability is at a crisis point. I think that we also need to acknowledge that this council is doing everything it can within the challenging economic environment to increase housing stock through the lens of our Brimbank planning scheme and using whatever levers we can to ensure it is diverse and that it complies with our urban development schemes. However, we are constrained and limited in our levers to unlock housing supply. In the short term, it is up to the state and federal government to explore through their fiscal policy the supply of housing. What both levels of government can do is work more closely with the local government to establish clear housing-focused policy for short and long term. One of the biggest key factors for consideration when seeking housing density, which is what is proposed in places like municipalities like Brimbank, because we don't have greenfields, so they are pushing for intensification of housing, is to make sure that there is greater fairness and equity in funding for things like public transport, community and social infrastructure and supports that need to meet the demands of the existing growth, which we have, and the proposed housing targets as the West continues to outstrip growth and growth targets and the population growth. So there is no point in discussing current and future housing targets without talking to council, local government, about the services that have to go hand in hand with that housing plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Papalia.
No, nothing further to add. Just thank you to all involved in putting this submission together, and I endorse and support
Thank
the
you.
motion. Thank you.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.8, Governance Policies Review. Ms. Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In this report, Council is asked to consider adopting a suite of updated governance policies following a period of community consultation from the 20th of June to the 19th of July 2024. It is recommended that the final draft Councillor Code of Conduct, Councillor Gifts, Benefits and Hospitality Policy, Live Streaming of Council Meetings Policy, Public Transparency Policy and Councillor Support Policy be adopted by Council. It is also recommended that the Council revoke the Councillor Transparency Policy, Councillor Respectful Conduct Policy and Councillor Protocol, noting no submissions were received on these. These policies have been identified as suitable to be revoked because they are duplicating existing content and or their content can be transferred to other policies. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this item? Councillor Papalia.
I move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dang.
I second it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Papalia, would you like to speak to this report?
Only to say it's great that we're simplifying and putting, you never want to have too many policies and procedures. If we can put our policies together and make it simpler for everyone and more accessible, it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dang.
No, thank you.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.9, Governance Report, August 2024. Ms. Hill, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Governance Report is a standing monthly report to Council. In this month's report, Council is asked to consider matters relating to recent governance activity. Council is recommended to note the exercise of delegated authority, councillor representatives and delegates' reports from committees, councillor declarations and representations by members of Parliament, records of informal meetings of councillors and the councillors' expenses for 23-24. These can be found in attachments 1 to 3. The report also details 2 submissions to government which Council is asked to note. One in response to the Circular Economy, Waste Reduction and Recycling, Mandatory Service Provision and Other Matters Regulations 2024 and Proposed Household Waste and Recycling Service Standards 2024 in Attachment 4. The second is in response to the Victorian Legislative Council Legal and Social Issues Committee as part of their inquiry into food security in Victoria in Attachment 5. Support is also sought for 3 expressions of interest for funding being offered by 2 federal government funding programs. In addition, Council is requested to delegate powers to an officer for an upcoming Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal matter. And finally, Council is recommended to note that the Local Government Victoria is seeking feedback in relation to Stage 2
of the 2024 local government reforms. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the director? Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Kerr.
I move the report as per the shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tarkos.
I second the report as per shared screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.10, Council Plan Action Plan Progress Report, Y3Q4, April to June 2024. Ms Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council adopted the Together We Are Brimbank Council Plan 21 to 25 in October 2021. Each year, after consulting with community, Council creates an annual action plan to implement the strategic directions and objectives as outlined in the Council Plan. Implementation of these actions is monitored and evaluated through quarterly reporting of actions, with achievements published at the end of the financial year in the Brimbank Council Annual Report. In 2023-24, the Council Plan Action Plan contained 109 actions. This report shows the progress made in the final quarter 4, from the 1st of April to the 30th of June 2024. I'm pleased to report that at the end of 23-24, 94% of the actions are fully complete, 5 are in progress and 1 action has been deferred. The recommendation is that Council notes the state of actions as presented in the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this report? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
I would like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Would you like to speak to this report?
Well, as Director Mrs. Hill said, I think it's fantastic that 94% of the actions have been completed, and you would like to note that the action status is a column that's provided in the report if you would like to look for further details. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Papalia.
No, thank you.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.11, Federal Level Advocacy Initiatives. Ms Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report outlines Council's recent and upcoming advocacy initiatives at the federal level. Last month, Brimbank participated in the National General Assembly of the Australian Local Government Association in Canberra. At the Assembly, we moved 2 successful motions calling on the Australian Government to increase its funding for major highways and to expand its current initiatives to support those who are unemployed. In addition, the trip to Canberra was a good opportunity for Council to meet with various federal MPs from both major parties, including a meeting with Minister Catherine King, who's the Minister for Infrastructure and Local Government. Council is recommended to note this delegate's report. In addition, Council is recommended to endorse a brochure outlining Brimbank's advocacy priorities ahead of the 2025 federal election. The brochure outlines a number of election commitments that we'll be seeking from the parties and candidates contesting the federal election. The commitments being sought are those of which are relevant at the federal level and largely align with the top priorities identified in Brimbank's Advocacy Plan 2023 to 2025. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this motion? Yes, Councillor Tarkos.
I move the motion as per business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this motion?
Just want to say that with the gambling harm that there is, thanks to our advocacy, now there is a decision at federal level about the possibility of a blanket ban on gambling ads, something that we as a council have been pushing really hard through our advocacy through you, Mayor. And also the big concern that out in our community at the moment is the impending decision of the Melbourne Airport third runway. I had conversations as recently as this week with a primary school that is really concerned, has got parents that are really concerned about the impact that if the third runway was to go ahead, about how it would impact Keilor Primary School. So there's a real nervous and anxiety in the air about the impending decision and what will transpire once that construction goes ahead. So thank you for your continued advocacy and our council's continuous advocacy on all those topics of priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? If not, I'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. 12.12 Municipal Maintenance Agreement, Department of Transport and Planning, formerly Vic Roads. Mr. Livers, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report follows a council resolution in April 2024 where council resolved to write to the Department of Transport and Planning and the Minister for Roads and Road Safety seeking increased financial contribution for council's maintenance of state roads. The response from the department and from the Minister confirmed that no additional funding will be provided to council. Officers have since met with officers from the Department of Transport and Planning and confirmed that that's the case. The costs for council in undertaking these works on behalf of the state government in excess of $350,000 over the funding that we receive from the state. As a result, officers recommend enacting the clause in the memorandum that we hold with the department to give 6 months' notice of council's intent to cease performing these works. And should council decide to take that advice and hand back the responsibility, officers would promote the Department of Transport and Planning contact details and refer resident requests and complaints to the department. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the director? Do I have a move of this item? Councillor Tarkos.
I move the officer's recommendation as per business paper.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nguyen.
I'd like to second that motion.
Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, I'd just like to say thanks for this report. And given that the state government is not providing increased contributions towards council maintenance of state roads within Brimbank, this creates a further financial burden on our ratepayers to maintain state-owned assets when the priority of this council is to maintain its existing roads and covering what's happening is they're covering less than a quarter of the cost of the road maintenance of the state roads, which means our resources and our staff are taken away from our roads and infrastructure. So I fully support that our council has already got its work cut out for it. As we remember earlier this year, when we had unseasonal rain and fast growth of grass reserves, and we needed so much more to be done with managing our own resources, they were stretched to the max, maintaining our existing infrastructure. So I fully support the officer's recommendation that if the Department of Transport is not prepared to increase its contribution towards the maintenance of their state roads, that we hand back the responsibility to the state.
Thank you. Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, I would like to thank the officers for going ahead and liaising with the state government to see if the state would like to contribute more to the funding of maintaining state roads. And I note that council currently expends about $475,000, whereas in comparison, the Department of Transport and Planning, they only contribute about $109,090. It's a state road, and I think it's really unfair to our local ratepayers. And given that the state government has indicated so far that no further funding will be provided, I would just like to second this report. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Going to go to 12.13, contract number 24/3522, supply, delivery and lease of 924 cubic metre side loading waste compactors and 424 cubic metre side loading green waste compactors. Mr. Livers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this report recommends awarding a contract for the lease of 9 side-loading waste compactor trucks and 4 side-loading green waste compactor trucks. These would be leased for 72 months under the recommendation. The recommendation is to award for 2 different compacting mechanisms for the waste trucks in order to trial a new and what we think is improved bandit compactor on 4 of the trucks following changes that were made to this project following feedback from our staff to the company. The superior packed compactors would be used on the other trucks to be leased. And that's the compactor type that's used on our existing waste trucks and is considered to be a good system. So we'd like to use this opportunity to do a comparison in the field. The value of the contract award is just over $10 million, which is significant for council, but it is a necessary cost to continue the provision of the in-house waste service. So I recommend this award to council.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Nguyen.
I'd like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nguyen. Councillor Dang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, quite briefly. So based on the evaluation criteria, the findings and the reference checks, I feel confident that the council has ensured that the tenders are conforming to the criterion and that the cost provided is reliable, is cost effective. And I welcome the opportunity to trial the new compactors in addition to our current ones. So I hope they go well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dang.
I'll support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? If not, I put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Thank you. I'm going to move to item 13, notice of motion. There are 2 notices of motion this evening. 13.1, Derrimut Fire Community Forum. Thank you, Councillor Takos.
I'd like to move the notice of motion as per shared screen. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kerr.
I second the motion as per the shared screen.
Councillor Takos, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say that the aftermath of the Derrimut fire, which happened on the Wednesday, the 10th of July, has left many questions unanswered to our community. I have had several calls from the community for a community type forum, like a question and answer session with the EPA and WorkSafe, so that residents and local people impacted by the fire can direct the questions regarding fire and its impacts to EPA and WorkSafe. Residents would like a meeting to be held in Derrimut at a location and time that is accessible by residents. Residents themselves have called the EPA requesting this, yet to date have not had a response. So in all, the rationale for this NOM is basically an opportunity for our residents who, this is the second explosion that happened in this particular Derrimut facility, to get some transparency and accountability around what happened and also what's in place to prevent things from happening in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Takos for bringing this motion to council and showing the initiative and responding to her residents. I've also had many phone calls during this situation. I think that it's a great idea that council takes proactive steps and their first foot forward to actually bringing the community together and writing a letter to the EPA and also trying to get WorkSafe and as many people in the room, so that way residents that are worried that live close by have an ability to go there and attend and listen and ask questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? No, I'll put this motion to vote. All in favour. Councillor David.
Madam Mayor, just if I can ask Councillor Takos to perhaps explain to councillors what we are to achieve with this request.
Yep.
Possible, please. Because this fire is happening. There's about 2 or 3 other fires last night, the night before. So what can we do to stop them?
Yeah, that's fine. Councillor Takos, would you like to clarify or explain to Councillor David?
Well, it's not a question of what we plan to achieve. It's for residents who've got a right to live within safety of an industrial precinct, and to also direct questions about what was stored in that factory, was it being monitored and regulated, and was compliance being exercised, and how in the vicinity of 12 months there's been 2 consecutive explosions in the same factory, one where there was an actual fatality. So I think, you know, residents reserve a right to understand what is happening in their neighbourhood. It's about them directing the questions directly to the EPA and to WorkSafe. I think they've got a right. And there has been a precedent where in Kialba, with the landfill fires, where the EPA did set up meetings after the landfill fires, where they had the business owner, in fact, and also EPA answering questions of the residents that they were concerned about with what gases were released, etc. And it just concerns me that the EPA organised a meeting that was in Altona in regards to this incident, which is not in our municipality, and our residents, and it was on a Friday at 3 o'clock when people are picking their kids off school, and a lot of residents couldn't access that meeting. So all this notice of motion is about is organising a meeting within Brimbank that's accessible and that residents can attend and ask questions.
Are you happy with the clarification, Councillor David? Put your microphone on, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good issue, I suppose, but it's something that we cannot stop happening. Just 2.5 months ago, the poor Glengala village was destroyed. So how can we stop things of such? EPA or anybody else? This is just that's my question, I suppose.
No worries. Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? No, Councillor Kerr, sorry. Would anyone else like to speak to this? If no one would like to speak to this motion, we'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried. Thank you. 13.2, 50 years of Vietnamese community and settlement in Australia. Councillor Dang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move the notice of motion at share screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
I would like to second that motion, the shared screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dang, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, the first wave of Vietnamese refugees arrived on Australian shores, seeking refuge from the conflict, persecution, and dire aftermath of war. They embarked on perilous journeys across the seas, driven by the hope to find in peace, safety, and a chance for a better future. And my mom and dad took us on the boat to escape Vietnam late 1980, and we was on the sea for 11 days. The journey to Australia was only the beginning of their challenges. Upon arrival, the Vietnamese community faced numerous obstacles, language barriers, cultural differences, and the trauma of displacement were significant hurdles. Many arrived with little more than clothes on their backs, having left behind homes, careers, and loved ones. They had to rebuild their lives from scratch in a foreign land. Despite this hardship, the Vietnamese community demonstrated remarkable resilience. They worked tirelessly to learn English, adapt to new customs, and integrate into Australian society. Their determination to succeed and provide for their family was unwavering, even in the face of adversity. Over the past 49 years, the Vietnamese community has become an integral part of the Australian tapestry. Their contributions are evident in every sphere of life. They have excelled in business, academia, medicine, and the arts. They have enriched our nation with their diverse perspectives, culinary traditions, and cultural heritage. The Vietnamese community has also been at the forefront of volunteering and philanthropy. They have supported countless charities, helped those in need, and strengthened the bonds within our neighborhoods. Brimbank boasts the largest Vietnamese community in Victoria, with almost 17% of the total population. They have enriched our multicultural landscape with their vibrant traditions, cuisine, and festival. The annual Lunar New Year Festival, which called Tet, for example, had become a beloved celebration for many Australians, showcasing the rich cultural heritage of Vietnam. At next year marks the 50 years milestone of the Vietnamese community in Australia. Madam Mayor, councillors, I call upon your support to acknowledge the courage and the perseverance of the Vietnamese community. Their journey from the hardship to success is a powerful reminder of the strength of human spirit and the value of diversity in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Dang for moving this notice of motion. Like next year, 2025, we are approaching the 50-year anniversary of the Vietnamese community settlement in Australia. And I think it's so important that we recognise the profound impact that this community has had on our nation. I'm a bit biased because I am Vietnamese Australian myself. But I think this milestone will be not just a celebration of history, but it's a tribute to the resilience, courage, and the incredible contributions of the Vietnamese people to our multicultural society. And I was so surprised to see the population data. So Councillor Dang mentioned before that Vietnamese people make up 17% of the population. That's actually the largest Vietnamese community in Victoria. So 32,000 residents. You would think Greater Dandenong has more. They only have 11%, which is 17,653 people. So Brimbank, come on, we got the largest Vietnamese community. And like many waves of migrants and refugees before, Vietnamese Australians have significantly contributed to the richness of our municipality. Like just out the street out there, to St. Albans, all over. I feel like the Vietnamese community has really woven itself into the very fabric of Brimbank. And I acknowledge that the Vietnamese community of Australia, Victorian chapter, their headquarters is in Sunshine North. And in the future, we look forward to welcoming the development of the Vietnamese Museum of Australia. And that's the first in the world too. So I want to say, I really endorse this motion. And I think we acknowledge the journey and the important role that they continue to play in making Brimbank a vibrant, diverse and welcoming place. I urge my fellow councillors to support this motion, collaborate with the Vietnamese Australian community to seek proactively practical support for the government for commemorative activities that will honour this upcoming anniversary next year. Thank you.
I've never seen you that happy talking about motion. That was great. Anyone else, councillors? Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Councillor David?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will. Well done, Councillor Dunn. Yes. 50 years. It goes quick. I remember that. Yes. Look, in their journey to Australia, story happened to be at the forum where they show a video and such. And I saw a lot of Vietnamese women and men crying. It was a terrible trip, but they went all the way through. But you ought to be proud of your community. They've done well. very well, extremely well. They came in and bore into work. I had neighbors with, when they rented houses, 5 or 10 sewing machines. They all became tailors and, yeah, things as such. It was a fantastic story. And back in '98, we had a young lady at the time called Pauline Hanson, at the First Nation, that is. And she was supposed to be coming to Sunshine. She scared the Vietnamese community because she was speaking about them all the time. So I happened to be the mayor at the time, and I put a press release to say she's not welcome in Sunshine with Brimbank. And I received a huge number of anonymous letters and telephone calls at the time. But it's all gone. It's a happy time now. And welcome to Australia, yes. Well done.
Thank you, councillors. Would anyone else? Councillor Kerr?
I just want to acknowledge the contribution that the Vietnamese community has made. As a little girl at the age of 7 and 8, my mum used to get me on the bus at Killadowns and take me to Elfrida Street. And, you know, just being exposed to the culture, the vibrancy, and always being made feel welcome at the different, you know, always get the best seafood in St. Albans and the best fruit and veg. And I just want to acknowledge that the Vietnamese community has contributed with hard work. You know, they've always followed the rules, and I really respect the community for everything they've achieved in Brimbank. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? Councillor Tarkos?
I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Tui for sharing her story. It was very moving on how she and her family came. It was a traumatic journey for many people to come, and only recently going to my dad's village and looking at the poverty and how a lot of people travelled out here looking for a new beginnings. I really praise that the Vietnamese community, as many have said, we see them also at our citizenship ceremonies and with tears in our eyes, and they talk to us about their journeys and how proud they are to be finally at home in Brimbank. I also want to thank all my Vietnamese friends that have also showed me a lot about the food and the cultural experiences and have made me feel really welcome to their families as well. So I can't wait to be part of this 50 years resettlement, and I thank and praise the integral role the Vietnamese community have played in making this city vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion, councillors? If not, I'll put it to vote. All in favour, raise your hands. It's carried. Item 14, notice of rescission. There are no notices of rescission. Item 15, urgent business. CEO, is there any urgent business for tonight?
There is no urgent business, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 16, confidential business. There is one item of confidential business. May I have a move of a motion to close the meeting in accordance with Section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 to members of the public for the consideration of item 16.1, which has been designated confidential. Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tarkos.
I'd like to second as per shared screen. Thank you.
I put motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hand. It's carried. Thank you to everyone who is currently viewing the live stream of this meeting. The meeting is now closed to members of the public at 8:19 p.m. and will not reopen to the public at the conclusion of the confidential business. Thank you all for attending and for your interest in tonight's meeting. Instruct Channel 31 to stop live streaming this meeting.